Well, I grew up in Chicago, the big windy city, and little did I know it that I was surrounded by great architecture. In fact, my father used to take me on weekends to the LaSalle Club where he played handball. And while I was en route there, I was surrounded by a museum of history in the development of what is now modern architecture. High-rise buildings that were designed by Jenny that were great innovations. Buildings by Louis Sullivan, Frank Lloyd Wright, Burnham and Root, all the greats. I guess I just absorbed it without even knowing. And that led me eventually to become an architect. I went to the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana, just about 125 miles south of Chicago, and majored in architecture. It was one of the top schools in the nation at the time. And the influence of Frank Lloyd Wright and the others I've mentioned were really significant. And I realized that the modern architecture that is so prevalent in Chicago is based on that historic foundation of great engineering, great innovation in design. And that was a source of inspiration for me. After graduating from the university, I went into the Army Reserves. I was later married after that and moved to San Francisco to start my career. And I joined a very progressive architectural firm in San Francisco and was involved immediately in a lot of very exciting and important big projects, including the Bay Area Rapid Transit stations in Oakland, several educational facilities for local universities and colleges, and research and development facilities in Silicon Valley. And in fact, one of the buildings I designed was for Alza Corporation, which was a pharmaceutical company, and that design won a merit award for design. It was exciting, but after 8 years there, I was beginning to feel an urge to move on. And it was during that time my two daughters were born, Leah and then Dana, in San Francisco in the heart of the Aquarian Age nucleus. And decided it was time to move on, expand my horizons a bit in the Aquarian spirit, and find my next move, my next career move. And so actually I traveled to Europe and the Middle East for 10 weeks on my own and went to some of the most significant historic places that I'd ever been to. I had stood in the place where Socrates and Plato must have stood in the Acropolis, overlooking the Aegean Sea with the golden light washing across the marble columns, and just feeling the sense of infinity. And I went to Chartres Cathedral and experienced the summer solstice celebrated by the penetration of a stained glass window with a beam of light that only penetrates as when the sun is that high at that time. And that beam struck a fieldstone in the paving of the cathedral and traversed across it, meeting a golden ingot that was sitting at its center. And at that moment was celebrated that one high noon moment in the year of the summer solstice, and celebrated in silence. It was at that time that I was so moved by that kind of experience that I felt that the idea and principle of solar would develop diversified meaning for me in my life. And I felt called to that direction. In 1973, while traveling in France, I visited Notre Dame du Haut, a tiny chapel located on rural land on the French-Swiss border. It caught my attention during architectural class at the university many years earlier. Designed by the great French architect Le Corbusier in the 1950s, it provided an opportunity to visit a temple that to me embodied what I had come to see as the first light ceremony in contemporary vernacular. Before entering, I sat on the grass outside to sketch its battered south wall with solar apertures and a sweeping roof with planes shaped like a nun's hat. I heard faint music begin to gently cascade under the roof planes. The composite felt like a space erected after the Second World War, yearning for sanity and light to restore faith and beauty. In 1975, I was hired to design a spiritual retreat center in Mount Shasta. The process was my mentor, in a sense, and as I proceeded, I found that my higher mind was prompting me to expand my sense of openness in my heart in order to allow the design to unfold in its most expansive form as well. So it was the inner and the outer in coalescence. That was a profound experience for me, and the flowering of that design represented the flowering of my heart. I was shown to develop the design by opening my heart and mind to the source of inspiration. This would be known as Morning Star. I then put it aside for the next inspiration with an inner knowing that this was meant to be carried forward only from an elevated perspective.